Hey everyone, how are we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a bunch of people asked hand history questions, and today's question comes from Bob, and Bob just wants me to review this live hand played with 7-6 suited. So let's check it out. Okay, so in this hand the blinds are 2-3, it folds around, here decides to open, gets called, and goes multi-way to it, which of course is not too uncommon in the live environment. End up going here, check, and here decides to check as well. So Bob said he would decide whether to check call or check raise based upon who bet, what the exact action and sizing was, and all that sort of fun stuff, and I can totally be on board with that. I think this is one of those where if you bet, you're probably not getting a tremendous amount of folds, and you're not going to know what to do on a lot of turn cards, so I don't mind taking the more check, get aggressive route, rather than just taking the mindless c-bet and then put yourself into some really uncomfortable turn spots where you have no clue if there's any fold equity whatsoever, and you're oftentimes going to require some. So in this exact spot, it goes check all the way through, 3 on the turn, there's a bet, and here just decides to call. So I feel a lot of players would look at a situation like this, obviously they have the nuts, and just start shoveling money in as quickly as possible. And it's not that raising here is necessarily bad by any stretch, but I don't think it's optimal. So this is one where I don't think anyone has a super strong hand. The bad rec is the only one who I think can have a really strong hand, given the fact that he checked flop. Yeah, he'd normally check to the pre-flop aggressor. So I think in this kind of situation, he's the only one that can have a super strong hand. I think if the passive player or the stuck player had something like 2 pair or a set on the flop, we would have heard from them with a bet. So in this situation, I actually like calling to try to induce some lighter stuff, right? Try to induce deuce X to come along, or ace X to come along, or a pair and weak draw to come along, or pocket sevens to come along. Whatever it is, I want to try to induce some stuff to come through. We're laying at a pretty good price. If anyone has a flush draw, whatever, sucks to be us, but who cares? And I'm really just trying to induce single pairs and crappy draws to come along. And I think by just calling, we can do that, whereas if we were to raise to something like 100, we blow it off, and I'm not even sure the bad 50-year-old is going to get super crazy unless he has 2 pair plus, and whatever, who cares? So again, my major point is how can I get the other 2 goofballs involved, and I think calling is definitely going to be the way to do that. So in this spot, we actually do end up getting called in both spots, which is awesome. Normally, I only expect one of them to continue. Getting 2 is fantastic. On the river, board pairs, we face a $50 bet, and here decides to call again. There are a couple really important considerations to make here. First and foremost, I don't think anyone has a boat or quads or any of that kind of stuff. I think if the bad 50-year-old had it, he would have bet much larger than just 50 bucks on this river. He only had 140 to start this street into a 183 pot. I think he just rips it, or at least bets 100 bucks if he has it. So I don't think he has that, and I don't think anyone else has anything strong either. I think if someone had 2 pair or a set earlier in the hand, we would have heard from it. So I really feel like we have the nuts here. It's really not a concern as far as boats are. So with that said, which line is going to be more profitable? Calling here to try to induce 1 or 2 calls behind us, or induce a lighter ship behind us, or just going after the bad 50-year-old stack ourselves and just raising it up? So which one is going to be more profitable? So if we rip and go after the bad 50-year-old stack, we're really just going after his last $90. Whereas if we call, we need both players behind us to call in order to equal that same amount of money, or we need to call and induce one of them to shove. Now, I don't think the passive dude is ever going to shove bad, and the stuck guy may, but it's one of those where if he has 3x or something like that, or whatever, I think if we raise, he's going to continue just the same as if we call and try to induce some sort of raise from him. So I think either way, if someone has a 3, we're going to get money from it, whether we raise here or call to induce from it. And in fact, a passive player may even just call a weak 3 on the river. So again, it's one of those where I think raising is going to be much better here. The only time I would call here is if I were very confident that one of the 2 players behind me is going to rip like a whiff draw or something like that and think that there's any semblance of fold equity. And I think that's kind of an optimistic thing to consider in this situation, just because why would they do that? If they wanted to play aggressive, why wouldn't they have just done it on the turn? I don't think that we're going to be facing that very, very often. So keeping all of those factors in mind, I would just much rather shove the river, hope that someone has a sticky 3, hope that the bad 50-year-old can't find a fold with whatever hand he has, and try to go after the money that way. I think calling to induce is a little optimistic, and I think calling to hope that you get 2 calls behind you is really optimistic, because you can expect at least one of them has a withdraw and is most likely not going to continue, if not both of them having that same withdraw and they don't continue. Now in this exact situation, face a raise to a $1.90, the bad 50-year-old calls, and hero just calls as well, and I think this is a leak. Again, I don't think anyone has a boat here. I'm not concerned about boats in the slightest. If the stuck dude had 4-3, I don't see him just calling the turn. I really don't. I see him raising it. If he had a set, I think that he either raises the turn or he bets the flop himself. Like, I'm not concerned about the big hand here. With that said, I think just calling here leaves $40 on the table. I'd really like to see Hero get after it, get that last $40 and add it to his stack rather than letting the stuck guy hold on to it. And after it's all said and done, we end up shipping the pot, of course, and we see the stuck guy did end up having the inducer, which is great. The bad guy had a second best straight, okay, is what it is. But again, yeah, we shoved the last $40. We never get called by Jack 6, but I don't expect to see Jack 6 often enough. I'm not shocked to see a stuck 3, something like 9x that all of a sudden goes into overvalue mode. I'd just rather get after it the times he can call me rather than let him keep his last 40. So Bob, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to send it in to me directly in my hand drop box, and that's at splitsuit.com/send. Same as always, if you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.